Right now, UK tourists in Mexico are being told to stay indoors, not to attempt to travel to airports. The Foreign Office has issued an urgent warning after a wave of cartel violence erupted across at least 20 Mexican states, all triggered by the killing of one man. Here's what's happening, who is affected, and what the UK government is telling travelers to do. Last Sunday, the 22nd of February, Mexican Special Forces killed Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, and I know I butchered the name. It's better known as El Mencho, the leader of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, or CJNG, one of the most powerful and feared criminal organizations in Mexico. El Mencho was seriously injured in a firefight between his bodyguards and military commando in the town of Tapalpa in Jalisco state. He died while being transported to Mexico City. At least 6 of his bodyguards were also killed. The United States had a $15 million bounty on his head. Within hours, members of his cartel launched a coordinated attack of retaliation across the country. The roads were blocked with burning vehicles, banks and businesses were set alight. Gunfire was reported near Guadalajara Airport, a city, by the way, that's set to host 4 FIFA World Cup matches later this year. More than 250 road blockades were reported across the affected states. At least 25 people have been arrested. Streets in many towns were left completely deserted. So where does this leave British travelers? Well, the UK Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, the FCDO, has issued a direct warning. Their statement is, I quote, "Authorities in Puerto Vallarta have issued a public advisory to stay indoors. Routes to the airport may be blocked. You should exercise extreme caution. Follow local authorities' advice, including orders to stay indoors and avoid non-essential travel in affected areas." Puerto Vallarta is a popular resort on Mexico's Pacific coast. It has been one of the worst hit area. Tourists described scenes that looked, in their word, like a war zone, with black smoke from burning cars visible across multiple neighborhoods. Around 300 visitors were stranded at Puerto Vallarta Airport after virtually all international flights were cancelled on Sunday. They were eventually escorted to the city center in a convoy with heavy police presence. At least 30 flights from US, Mexican and Canadian airports either turned back or diverted. Dozens more were cancelled outright. The FCDO has also warned of blockades in intercity roads across affected states and is advising anyone who is traveling to stick to daylight hours only. Now, importantly, the main resorts on Mexico's Caribbean coast, including Cancun, are around 1,000 miles from the worst of the violence. Sunday flights from Manchester, Birmingham, Gatwick and Heathrow to Cancun all operated normally. So if you booked on a Caribbean coast holiday, you're not directly affected. But the FCDO will advise staying alert and monitoring local news wherever you are in Mexico. Mexican security officials say around 90% of road blockades have now been lifted. The tension remains high though, especially in Jalisco, the cartel's stronghold. Experts are warning this could get worse before it gets better. Sandra Pellegrini from the conflict monitoring group ALCLET said, and I quote, "Past cases suggest leadership removals rarely reduce violence long term and instead often trigger instability as factions compete for power." And she's right. We might have seen patterns before. When Ivo Gomez Lopez, the son of El Chapo, was captured in 2019, the street battles were so fierce the Mexican government actually released him to stop the bloodshed. He was later rearrested and extradited to the United States. The question now is whether the CGNG's fragments into competing factions and whether a new leader takes control quickly enough to prevent an all-out turf war. Either way, travelers should expect continued disruptions in the coming days. So, if you're a British national currently in Mexico or planning to travel, here's what you need to know. First, check the FCDO's Mexican travel advice page, which is being updated regularly with the situation. I'll leave a link in the description. Second, if you happen to be in an affected area, follow local instructions. If you're told to stay indoors, stay indoors. Don't attempt to reach to the airport unless your airline has confirmed your flight is operating. Third, if you need consular assistance, you can contact the British Embassy in Mexico City. Again, details in the description. Fourth, if your travel is booked for the coming weeks, contact your airlines or tour operator directly for the latest status on your route. This is a developing story and I'll be covering it as more details come in. Thank you for watching.